Yo, Shortbox Nation. Hello again. Welcome back, and thanks for pressing play today. If you're brand new, welcome to the show. My name is Botter, and this is the Shortbox Podcast, the comic book talk show that brings you the best conversations about your favorite comics with the people that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making them. This is episode 479, and today I'm recording this episode live from my favorite place in the entire world, which is my local comic shop, Gotham City Limit. I'm here today because they are hosting world-famous comic cover artist Aaron Bartling. You know, Gotham City Limit loves doing their shop exclusive variants. They recently did one with Aaron Bartling on the new cover, for a cover of Final Boss #1, which is put out by Image Comics, written and drawn by Tyler Kirkham. Now, Aaron Bartling came on the scene blazing hot 6 years ago with his highly sought after and extremely popular variant cover for TMNT, The Last Ronin #1. Since then, he's had a very favorable career working with many publishers, which include DC Comics, IDW, Image Comics, Boom Studios, and Dark Horse Comics. Aaron is here at Gotham City Limit, not only signing his exclusive variant cover, but he's also doing what he does best, right? He's creating art for us to enjoy, and he's kind enough to share some time to talk about his career with me. So without further ado, Shortbox Nation, let's welcome Aaron Bartling to the show.
Thank you
Aaron,
so much, man.
welcome.
Appreciate it, man.
Dude, how is
awesome intro, man.
Oh, thank you so much, man. Aaron, how is Jacksonville treating? How is Gotham City Limit treating you?
Oh, it's been amazing, man. I mean, the shop is super cool. Ben is amazing, super hospitable.
You don't even have to do much work. Ben will sell the comic for you.
Oh,
Hell, he might even sign them and place for you.
He's the ultimate hype man, ultimate businessman. He's got it all, man. So
now, for the audio viewers, I'm gonna try my best to describe this, but for video viewers, here live at Gotham City Limit, sitting with Aaron at his table, I'm holding up the cover to Final Boss, your exclusive Gotham City Limit shop variant. I guess, could you give us the background about how you got this assignment? Did you work with Ben to come up with a concept? I mean, how did this come together?
Yeah, we talked about a few different ideas, a few different concepts, and he was like, I want something with the characters fighting, something like that. So I did a few different, usually I do like a few sketches, just different concepts. And so I think I sent like 2 or 3 over, and that one was the one that he really liked. And I wanted something that was kind of, was like video game inspired, you know, or like a Capcom kind of feel to it. And it's actually, I'm forgetting right now what it was, but it was kind of an homage to a Spider-Man Wolverine cover, and I can't think of the cover right now, but it's in similar fashion to that. But yeah, so basically, you know, it was just like have the two, you know, main characters clashing, and then have them kind of like their faces, like they're facing off in the background. So
I think it's a perfect inspiration, considering I think Tyler Kirkham's Final Boss is a giant love letter to fighting games, video games, Marvel's Capcom, that type of stuff.
Yeah. So I think I definitely had that in the back of my head as I was designing it out, so that it, you know, captured that feel and that look and aesthetic. So,
well, I think you nailed it. I think also, you know, your artwork has a great sense of lighting. I think the colors are always like very harmonious, and it always exudes like emotion. I mean, you know, case in point being your TMNT Last Ronin cover.
Thanks.
I'm curious about your favorite, I guess, tools and medium. Do you prefer more digital or you know, inks and pencils?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I mean, for most of my stuff, it's all digital. Only in the last like couple years, I started working more traditionally with acrylics. But I just feel like digital is usually my go-to, just because it's quicker, faster, and kind of like the industry standard. You know, as a whole, most people are using digital nowadays. But I think there's something to be said too about being able to paint traditionally. You know, because you can offer an original, and then you know, it's just kind of more sought after kind of stuff. So yeah.
Now, I ended up learning on the topic of process and making. I ended up learning that you are self-taught. And from what I read is that you had a decision between either going to school or going the self-taught route. I guess what was the catalyst to go the self-taught route?
Yeah, I mean, like I thought about doing school, and I did a few like art classes here and there. But I think ultimately, like I followed a lot of different artists that were like, hey, you know, you can make it through classes online or mentorships. Or, you know, just putting in the hard work and doing it yourself. And so, you know, I just decided I'm going to go the self-taught route, because I had heard so many stories of artists that were spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars on tuition for, getting a bachelor's in illustration or something, and then a lot of times they would get their degree and then they wouldn't get a job out of school, and then they have $200,000 in debt, and so I was like, I don't want that, I'd rather spend like 20 grand in getting a mentorship and just going the self-taught route. And so, ultimately that was kind of, what I decided. But
when I think about self-taught artists, I always think about this interview Jim Lee did on Fat Man on Batman, where he talked about those early years and like settling, like, I'm going to be a comic artist.
Yeah.
So he'd wake up early in the morning. He would log in like 8-hour shifts, like it was a real job, just practicing and training. Could you talk a little bit about what the process was like for your self-taught, training and what was that like learning the hard way and like on your own? And
I mean, I think so. It's like a two-sided coin with learning on your own. It's like you learn at your own pace, as opposed to going to a school. Which is nice, is like if you're just not feeling it creatively one day, if you're going to a school, it's like you have to show up for class, and so
you paid for it.
You paid for it, like you got to go, so like it's nice that like you can kind of pace yourself and go how you want. But I would say the downside to being self-taught is that you don't have someone over your shoulder. Yeah. So it's like if
that
you're
external
making
motivation.
Yeah. It's like in the motivation and just the instruction, because if you're doing things wrong or you're training wrong, then it's like that, you're slowly building bad habits basically, and so if you're building those bad habits, it's really hard to undo them, especially if you're doing them for years, and it's like you don't have a professional over your shoulder to say, hey, you need to work on this, you need to work on that. So I would say that is like the downside to being self-taught is like it's kind of not a guessing game, but you're kind of like, well, I hope I'm doing this right, and then like, that's why I really encourage if you're going the self-taught route to have a mentor.
Okay.
So I've always had like art mentors throughout the years, and I think they're fantastic because it's like while they're not directly over your shoulder, you're sending your work to them, and you're meeting with them one-on-one, and they're giving you the direct feedback to say like, hey, you could make this better, you make that better. So hopefully that answers that.
No,
question.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And actually it made me think of another question, because I understand that you drove down from you're in North Carolina now. You drove down from North Carolina to be here this weekend.
Yeah.
And when I think North Carolina, I think of a very rich comic book community. Not only is Heroes Con take place there, you got Heroes Aren't Defined, but like folks like Sanford Green are in the area. I think Jonathan Hickman is in the Carolinas as well. Can you have you found community in comic books now that you're in the industry, you're a professional? Like, who are some of the friends or colleagues or even mentors that you have now?
I mean, like in regards to the community thing, I haven't really found it in North Carolina yet. I feel like we've only been there for a few years, so I'm still we're still like getting our roots,
settling in
or whatever. But and it is cool to know that like there is a big community and a scene out there. I actually last year I went to Heroes Con
nice.
For the first time, which was really cool.
Yeah, one of the best ones.
Yeah, no, it was an amazing show, super fun. And so but I feel like there's so many peers of mine that are just super cool in the industry. When I went to Heroes, I sat next to Drew Zucker.
Nice.
He's a good buddy of mine.
Yeah.
So he's him and I talk pretty often. I mean, I'm just trying to think. There's so many guys, Sajad Shah, Ryan Kincaid, Tyler, super cool
Tyler
guy
Kirkham,
I talk
awesome.
To.
While you think about, let me ask you about your career before getting into comics, because I understand that not only were you a self-taught artist, but you were working in the music industry for a little bit, working on specifically, I think, with in the heavy metal scene, working on album covers, merch, and all of that.
Yeah.
How did you get into that role?
So I was like, I'm still super into the metal scene, and I love that music. So
what are some real quick? What are some bands or musicians that you've worked with?
They're all like kind of they're like smaller, like
No, that's
metal,
fun.
like they're probably one of the bigger ones is there's a death metal band called Impending Doom. That I did like a lot of t-shirts for them and stuff. But yeah, no one that's like crazy huge, you know, and like to that point, that was kind of the reason why I transitioned out of that space, is just because from a financial standpoint, it was just tough because there was like a lot of like smaller bands that I was working with. And you know, a lot of times bands are like focused on you know, trying to get money to record or whatever, you know. So it's like they might not have extra cash to do t-shirts or to do their album art or whatever.
I'll be honest, it sounds like you're describing the comic book industry.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's scraping for every dollar.
Everyone's just scraping. Yeah.
Well, you know, when I read that, I ended up looking at your gallery of covers and things. I was, you know, he really does have this approach. I don't know. A lot of your covers kind of give off like music, you know, album cover art, kind of as it is. And I was curious about your approach. Has it differed? Does it change much when considering like a music project versus a comic cover? Because I mean, you know, when I think of it, it's almost like the same job, right? An album cover and a comic cover, both of their goal is to sell the thing inside, you know, to capture like the vibe, the message in one image. What's your approach?
That's like a great point, honestly, man, because I was doing that's mostly what I did was album art. Like I would say 80% of the work I was doing for bands was the album art. And my buddy that referred me to get into this space, he was like, "Well, you're already doing album art." He's like, "The only difference is the ratio. That's it. Like in terms of like size, you know, because an album art's like a perfect square.
Yeah, 12 by 12.
Yeah, and so he was like, "You're already doing the same kind of stuff. It would just be obviously comic geared stuff." Sure. So and like because I'm into metal, like, you know, I'm into kind of an edgier, darker feel with a lot of emotion, a lot of storytelling,
for sure.
Heavy emphasis on contrast, on lighting, you know, like punchy colors and you know stuff like that. So so yeah, it was just kind of a natural progress to kind of get into that space, you know, or transition from the album art and the music scene into doing comic covers.
For sure. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I definitely see a lot of those elements in your covers. Yeah. But there is a level of effortless cool and emotion that you bring to it. And I think something about the lighting too reminds me a lot of like you know, like you've seen like the Frank Frazetta like album covers, and there's just this sense of like you know, just how dramatic those things can be. I guess I'd also love to know, like, what's your first comic book memory? Like, when you think about the comic book, the first comic you got or the first one that made you a fan, what comes to mind?
So this is actually a funny question because I like people ask like, oh, like what do you collect or what did you read or whatever? Like, to be honest, before 2020, like I was like not into comics at all. Like I never grew up reading comics. Like it wasn't like something that I was like super interested in. Now I love comic characters. Like I love I always it's like as long as I can remember as a kid or whatever. You know, I loved all the MCU movies and DC movies or whatever. So I was never like super into comics, but I would say I guess like because it was kind of the catalyst or inception title for me was probably Last Ronin. You know, like just because I've always been a TMNT fan, even though I wasn't reading the comics. I've always loved TMNT, so to be able to work on that and then like see how big of a title that it became and was like, it was just like super cool.
Interesting. So yeah, because you know, I look at your artwork and it was hard for me to like pinpoint. I was like, you know, what if I had to like, you know, say this was something, what vibes does it give me? It was hard for me to, you know, choose, and I guess it makes sense considering that like you kind of brought your own style. You weren't like influenced per se by like a lot of like the traditional artists people would say. But I guess even, you know, whether it be comic artists or not, who are some artists that you're influenced by or, you know, you look towards for inspiration?
So I think so two things with that. Storytelling and emotion. I think it was one of my old mentors would tell me is like that should be number one, you know, and then everything else is just kind of like the cherry on top. But ultimately, like, it's cool to make a cool looking cover, but like if you can sell the story and you can push emotion, like that's what really like takes it to the next level, like, and it resonates with people more. And I think that's why the last Ronin stuff like resonated so much with people, because it hit like on a deeper kind of like heartstring level,
sure.
instead of just being a cool image, which was what I was going for.
It's a good compliment, I think, to the story. The story being about the last, last turtle.
Yeah.
And then your cover kind of perfectly gives a good callback. The ghost of the ghost and all that. The brothers.
Yeah.
I think you captured that emotion really well.
Yeah. And then as far as like as I was kind of getting into the comic stuff and I was looking at different comic artists, one of the first people I saw, and you could probably see kind of the influence there, is Marko Jerkovic. I mean, like, I'm a huge, like, he's probably
one of the best painters out there.
He's one of my top 5 artists, favorite artists for sure. Like, all the stuff he's done for League of Legends and Six More Vodka, his studio, all his old Marvel work. His Marvel work is just like, there's just something about it, man. I'm just like in love with it. And I think his lighting, his ability to storytell and sell emotion too. Like, I think I am like, as much of that I can infuse into my work, like I'll do, because
that's
I
a good one.
Stuff. So.
Yeah, I'll also say, I think what some of the names that actually ended up coming to mind is like Greg Horn and Brandon Peterson. I think because they're just masters at like the utilizing digital media to create, comic book art, which I think can sometimes be a little tricky at times, but I think you're in good company.
Yeah.
I guess if you don't mind asking, how did the opportunity to do a cover for TMNT come about? Because now, I guess for you, is it crazy how you've cemented your place in comics? Like the fan, I mean, you've got people lined up to come see you, like, all off of one cover, and it's like you don't have a comic book background. How did the opportunity to do TMNT come about?
It was like, so end of 2019 was when I did my first published piece. It was a Deja Thoris cover for Unknown Comics. And then I think I did a Red Sonja, and I think it was like right after that, I was contacted by a really small retailer. They were in, I think, Lancaster, California, like a very small shop called Line Breakers. So they reached out because they had seen that I had done some stuff, and they're like, hey, there's this new title coming out called Last Ronin. I didn't know anything about it, like, but they were like, it's TMNT, so are you interested? And I,
nice.
Little did I know it was going to be like one of the
game changer.
Yeah, one of the biggest, not only for my career, but just in general, one of the biggest titles in the comic industry.
Yeah.
And so I was like, TMNT, yeah, I'm down. That sounds cool. And it sounded more like adult in its theme and in its premise. So I got on board, and I guess kind of like, as you've been saying, talking about like going, I didn't have any influence, and I was very like naive to everything. So I was like, well, I'm just gonna do what I want to do, or how I want to do things, like almost like a Todd McFarlane kind of thing, how he changed the game with like, Spider-Man and all that stuff. Cause he was like, well, I'm just going to do what I want to do. You know, like,
what's cool to me is what I think is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I was like, I didn't want to, I saw like some other people that their covers that had already gotten released, and it was not that they were bad, of course, but like, it was just like very kind of like the straightforward, like action pose, whatever.
Very house style, very like run of the mill comic covers.
Yeah. So I was like, I want to do something that's not like flashy or sexy, and do something that's just straight emotion and just storytelling. And And so I think, if you look at all like kind of that initial whole drop of variants, like there's like a few I think that are more like of the storytelling and emotion, but it's only a few. And so I think like it was like the right route to take.
That's
and
smart.
Then, and I got,
everyone else is going.
It was just a perfect storm.
Yeah, everyone else is going right. You went left.
Yeah,
a little more subdued. Yeah, that's a great point. I like that. So. I guess. Okay, so being here today, you mentioned going to Heroes Con. What's your favorite part of the art making process? Is it seeing? Is it in being in the process? Making it. The trial and error that comes with that. Or is it seeing your cover, printed, somewhere in a shop? Or is it like being here and having people ask, like compliment you and ask you to sign these things? Like, what's your favorite part of the art making process?
Yeah, definitely like when it's done, when the dust is settled, and doing the final piece, like when the final piece is sent in, that's really refreshing. But then I think ultimately the most rewarding part is just two parts: the online feedback when I post something online, and then like you see all the. And I try not to get too caught up in social media because it's like that's a toxic, like
sure.
if you're relying on like just likes and comments and that, and you're like your whole everything you're revolving your life around is just like a dopamine hit in that way, then it's like that's not good, So I try not to get too caught up with that, but I would say the best feeling is just like kind of this experience is being at the shop and having people pick up Final Boss and the G.I. Joes and coming over and like showing their support and the fact that they, like your work enough that they want to buy it. Like that's just such a cool feeling,
Absolutely.
And so, yeah.
So do you have any intention, I guess, of now that you've had, you're finding success doing variant covers, is there any intention to possibly get into doing like full on interior work? I mean, I know that's a whole different beast, but I mean, are you still, I guess, exploring, where covers can take you? Or are you looking into maybe doing more interior work as well?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've had a little bit of experience with interior work. I did like some color work.
Oh, cool.
And it was like, I didn't really enjoy it, like I wasn't really having fun doing it. And this is no bash or disrespect to obviously we have to have comic books and we have to have interior artists, that's just the part of the thing. But I just, from a financial standpoint too, I think it was more lucrative to go the cover route. And especially because I have a family, like, so it's like, all right.
I was just about to bring up the time factor, probably.
Yeah. Like role. I had to look at like, okay, like what's the wisest decision to make here, like from a financial standpoint, and just kind of like a exposure, notoriety, and stuff. And so I was like, what, cover seemed like the route to go. So yeah, so I'll probably. I mean, maybe down the road, I'll like delve a little bit into interior work, like, and it would be cool to do something where it's like all like a painted interior kind of look, which would be super cool. I think like, I think of like Clayton Crane, it's like, I mean,
Jeff
like,
DeCal comes to
yeah, like, and it's like they're doing like their own comic stuff and they've done interior work and it's that same, like the same kind of aesthetic and look that they're doing their covers is the interior work, So I think it'd be pretty epic to do like something that's like, really super rendered out interiors, even if it takes longer, but they look like imagine like interior work looking as good as cover work, that'd be pretty cool. Because usually, sometimes like you look at a cover and then you look at the interiors and it's like
completely different. For
not
sure.
like the aesthetic and everything is just so different,
So I said at the top, you've had an opportunity to work with what feels like every publisher under the sun, DC, IDW, Boom, et cetera, et cetera. A twofold question for you. What's it been like working with these publishers? Is there any publisher that really stands out in terms of like, maybe getting the most experience, like learning completely something new, or I guess like what publisher has really kind of helped you adapt to the comic book world and, push your art and is there any one that comes to mind?
I would say, well, IDW obviously has been amazing because IDW, because of all the TMNT. Like I have to give a shout out to the IDW crew. They've been super awesome. And then I've had so much fun working on Boom titles too. Especially the Something's Killing the Children stuff.
I love your cover for that one too, man.
Yeah, I've done a few. I have a new one actually coming out in December.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so like, but that's been like so fun working with them. But I would say that the two that I've had the most fun with is probably Image, just because I've loved a lot of their titles to work on, and all their editors are like super cool. And DC is amazing too. And I think like obviously as a comic book artist, like you're gonna be like favorable probably to like the Marvel and DC stuff because it's like all the characters that you envisioned or wanted to work on. And I will say too. That are you familiar with Marvel Snap?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I've actually been working with Marvel Snap for the
Nice.
last year.
Marvel Snap scoops up some of the best artists for like
Yeah.
some amazing portraits, characters. I mean, Maria Wolf comes to mind. She's
Yeah.
done some great things.
Yeah. So like that's been I would say, even though none of that work has been released, it's still all like NDA
cool.
right now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I would imagine 2026 a lot of my Marvel Snap work will start getting released.
Cool.
But that's been like so fun. Like, you know, I've done like Ghost Rider and Daredevil and
Dope.
Moon Knight and, you know, Sabretooth and, like, you know, all these like epic characters that have been just so fun to work on. But yeah, I would say ultimately, probably the big two have been the most fun. You know,
man, I'm glad that you are having such a positive experience in this space, you know, from the reception to your covers, you know, to being a you know, fully respect, like a newbie that is bringing a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
I think it's been interesting to watch your career blow up and do all these great things with, you know, my local comic shop.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we got a line forming. So I'm gonna ask you one more question. And this is for all the aspiring artists out there, considering, you know, you're self-taught, you've got success going, and it seems that you've got a bunch more projects on the, horizon.
Yeah.
I guess, what piece of advice would you give to an aspiring artist that is like, I too want to go the self-taught route, that seems to be the best fit for me? You know, what advice would you give that you wish that maybe you would have gotten early on in your career?
That's an awesome question. I would say first I wish I would have started younger, because I'm like, if I would have, not that I was never a crazy like partier or anything, you know, but you know, I definitely had my like just more fun, lazy days. And I wish I had more self-discipline when I was in my 20s, because I'm like, if I would have had the discipline in my early 20s or mid 20s, you know, I imagine now being in my mid 30s, like, okay, where would I be? You know, like skill level wise, notoriety.
I ask myself that every day as a mid 32. I'm like, if only my 20s I was more focused. But you don't know that until you become mid 30.
It's like, you know, you won't know, but but I wish, you know, me looking back, I would have done that and grinded and put the time in, instead of been like, you know, because then like if you work harder younger, then you get to play earlier.
You get to enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Yeah. So I would say that, and then I would say secondly, don't be afraid to or work hard and don't be afraid to fail. You know, because I think a lot of artists, they're scared, they're intimidated, especially with like all the AI stuff, which is like a huge topic right now. So there's a lot of fear, and like I think people get hung up on that, you know, where they're like, well, I don't even want to give it a chance because, you know, there's so much competition, or like, what if I fail, you know? But it's like, but wouldn't you rather, even if you do fail, let's say you do, like, wouldn't you have rather given it your all and tried, you know, and then if you failed, then you could say at the end of the day, like, hey, I gave it my all and I tried and it didn't work out, but at least I'll never have that what if, you know, and I never wanted to have that what if. I wanted to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put 120% into it, and I will make it happen, you know? And I think if you have that mentality, then you will find success, you know? So
yeah. Words to live by. I'm glad you didn't let it just be a what if. I'm glad that you're here at Gotham City Limit doing these signings and making this great art. With that being said, I'll wrap this interview up. Aaron, you've been great. I have links to to your socials in the show notes and all of that. But best of luck at everything, man. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it, man.